students sticking with it. That's the problem with teaching Pali. It's not easy to learn. It's not easy to teach, and I think there are techniques to make it easier for people to understand. I think the big problem is the idea of learning Pali seems interesting, but I don't think people quite realize the effort that's required. Anyway, today we go on to Kitaka. First, let's talk about homework. So last week's homework was Kanya, right? So this week, is that right?
Yes, that is right.
And then Rati, today, Rati, this week. We've been over the verbs. We talked about them at least twice now. And I tried to tell you not to worry too much about everything. But I think it's incredibly complicated and confusing. So let's go over them briefly again, just to recap. So verbs have 8 components. Kala, so there's different times for verbs, of course. And here they all are here, Vattamana. And we have pada, which means is it active or passive? So we're going to have 2 sets of declensions. Vachana, plural, singular. Purisa, first person, second person, third person. So Purisa and Vachana is the 3x2. That's how you get your grid for the paradigm. And then Pada, there's 2 of them, so you got 2 grids. That's for the charts that you have to memorize. And then the charts work for different roots, and different roots have to add different suffixes, and those suffixes are going to depend on the vachaka. And then finally declension, which are the endings for the charts. So looking at it that way makes it seem kind of, wow, it's a lot of information, but it's easier if you just look at this and you say, okay, so if you take a root, then here you've got these endings for those roots, right? Each root is going to be modified by adding a declension. And so then you have 3 different factors here. You've got the number, you've got the person, and you've got whether it's passive or active. But again, this would be active and this would be passive. So the letters are backwards because this is the Pali Parasapada, Atanupada. But then you've got this little problem that before you add the ending, you have to add a suffix. And so if it's present system, which is Vattamana, Panchami, and Sattami tenses, then you go by the groups. And different groups will add different suffixes. So you get a present stem bhava and so on. But the other tenses don't do this. They just take the root and fix the ending onto them, with some strange things happening, but that's basically what they do. So these groups are only really useful for the present system, which again also includes something we'll look at today in Kitaka about, I've mentioned already the present participles, but other participles as well. No, just present participles. Yeah, and that only goes for ordinary sentences, katuvachika, because only katuvachika uses those groups. So it's both only the present system and katuvachika. If it's kamavachika, so if it's a passive sentence, remember kamavachika is where you'd say something like sudena odano pachyate. And then for pachyate, you don't add the ordinary, the 8 groups. You instead add always iya. So that's why you get pachiyate instead of a. Here you'd get pach is just it's from the first group. First group adds a, but only for katuvajika. So if it's a passive sentence, like the rice is cooked by the cook, you add this instead. And again, all of this is not that, you don't have to stress too much about all of this, because you are not trying to form these verbs. That would be a nightmare. But we're just trying to translate them. And when you translate them, you can already get a sense of what this means. You say, oh wait, this isn't the rice cooking with the cook. The rice isn't doing the cooking. And you say, oh wait, yeah, this is the passive and this is the atanopada ending. So yeah, this is a passive sentence. This is kammawajika, which really literally means a passive sentence. Wajika refers to what it's speech about. Bhavavajika is a special case where it's where something exists. By him it existed, i.e. he exists. It's just very rare, but does exist. And then these are the causatives. If it's someone causing someone to do something, or if it's speech about the thing that someone is causing someone to do something about. So this is speech about the rice, which the Lord is making the cook. Right, so here we have hetukatu vajika, and they both use. I'll look this up when I get home, but I think they actually both use the same. I don't know what ya is for. Wait, just a second. Na ya, napiya. I think these are actually the same, and this ya is way out of. Let's just go out on a limb and say that they're the same, because I think they are. I'm not sure about that, actually. I think there is some difference, but I'll look it up when I get home. For now, we'll say they're the same. I don't know, I'm pretty sure that ya was not supposed to be there. Anyway, once you've added this...
Can I ask a question? What would be the difference between the katuvajaka for the 8th group and hetuka? Those last two, because they overlap the endings.
So because of that, if you wanted to point out that it was causative, you wouldn't use this one for that group.
Okay.
So if you're causing someone to think, which something causes someone to think, you'd use chintapiyate. And remember, you're also using this ending to give it away. You don't have to, but you usually do. It more works like that, like they'd make it clear. If you see...
that ending is from the passive.
You wouldn't see chintete. You just wouldn't. You'd see chintete, of course. That's very common, chintayati. But if they wanted to show that it was causative, they'd make it known. That's what these endings are for, to indicate that you're using chintapete. Or no, this is actually quite common. You don't have to use right, because this wouldn't be. So if you wanted to make it hetu kamawajika, then you'd do something like this. Use the passive endings. Right?
That's with nape.
But with hetu katuvajika, an active causative. So this means someone causes someone to think. If you said it like this, it's more likely to be someone causes something to be thought. So the subject is not the person who is doing the thinking. It is the thing being thought. So I don't know how you say thought exactly. What is it that you think? Well, anyway. A subject, thinking about a subject. So a subject is caused to be thought about. That's what this means. But if it's like this, then it's someone causes someone to think, and then you'd say the bhikkhu, let's say. Bhikkhu chintapeti. Bhikkhu buddhena chintapeti. Am I doing this right? No, I'm doing this wrong. So this means the bhikkhu. Yeah, sorry for that one. It's buddho bhikkhung chintapeti. Sorry, it's apeti. The Buddha causes the bhikkhu to think. If you wanted to say what tung, and what tung here, because it's neuter, that's actually one form. The what tung is caused by the Buddha to be thought about by the bhikkhu. So Buddha and bhikkhu are both in 3-1. So this is speech about, this is hetukamavajaka. This is speech about the thing that is being caused to be acted upon. That's the most complicated sort of sentence you're going to find. But it's not that hard to understand. It just means that the Buddha, the thought, or the subject, is being caused to be thought about, is, how would you say it in English? Is being caused to be thought about by the bhikkhu, by the Buddha. It's being caused by the Buddha to be thought about by the bhikkhu. Understand?
Yes, and we had an example last time.
Yeah.
I think. And that is with using nape, isn't it?
That one was.
Yeah. And I have one more question. There are not all the roots for all the verbs. For instance, I couldn't find for in regards to giving or in regards to leaving.
Yes.
And how do we know in which group they belong?
I think there are actually books that you can find that have them listed, have not all roots. I asked about this actually. I tried to find, a long time ago, I tried to find a dictionary of roots. And someone told me that there is no such complete dictionary. There are books that have partials. And I think I actually got a couple of books like that, but they're not complete. There's just so many roots, and nobody ever compiled it, apparently. I don't know. But how we do it, we're not trying to compose these. We just look at it and we say, oh, that's probably this group.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
If you want, for composition, if you're ever trying to compose, find the verb as it's used in a sentence somewhere and go from there. You'll see right away which group it is. So what these rules are for is to tell you what the groups are, so that when you see a verb, you can say, because it has this ending, this suffix, right? And this is then it must be in this group.
But only for one verb root in regards to giving for the.
So you go and find it in that sentence.
Okay, thank you.
Da is actually irregular because it ends up with dadati. Dad, D-A-D. It's an irregular verb. The easiest way is to look up the actual, to know what the verbs are instead of the roots, and look up the verbs, because then you'll find the root, and it'll give you lots of different, like the Pali English Dictionary is pretty good about giving you all the various forms of it. And the digital Pali Reader has conjugations of verbs as well, even irregular ones. Any other questions about verbs? Okay, today we're going on to Kitaka. So Kitaka, in English, they call it primary derivation. So what this is it's how you derive words. And what this is useful for is if you find a word like sayambu, then you can figure out where it came from by seeing the root and figuring out what has been done to it. Let's see a better example, because these are not good examples. Let's Kirya. How many really good examples here? But here's a good one. This nuwu is a really good ending. And it's not nuwu because it becomes ka. Don't ask me why. But because with this one you have a noun. So this noun here means one who leads. A leader. A nayaka is a leader. And in fact, in Thailand, they say nayok, which is just a way of saying nayaka in Thai. Nayok is what they use for the president. Nayok Rata Mantri, the head of the country, the president of the country. So this comes from the root nai. So that, and nai is in regards to leading. So if you know like the root, the word neti, and again, so it's irregular, nayaka becomes neti, or nai becomes neti. Anyway, you know that nayaka is from this root, or this root, then you can already know what the word is referring to. You don't have to know all the forms. You don't have to know that nayaka means leader, because you know, I'm going to show you what these, well, you can see already what this ending means, right? Someone who does something, and it's not necessarily does something. It can be someone who, oh, no, here it means someone who does something. Anyway, because you know it means someone who does something, and this is in regards to leading, then you already know what this means. You're able to make your definition from the root. This is the power of knowing roots. All of these here, like here's the root. The root is wad in regards to speaking. And so yeah, this is a compound because you have dhamma before it. It's two words. So dhamma wadi. And wad is the root, wad with ni. And remember, again, this is just an indicator that you're strengthening the root vowel. So instead of wad, you end up with wad. You end up with dhammawadi. And if you look at this, and once you get clever about Pali, you can say, oh, I know, this comes from the root wad. Wad, and then you add the ending e, strengthening the root vowel. You get wadi, one who does wad. What is wad? Wad in regards to speaking. So this is wad. Wadi is one who speaks. One who speaks what? One who speaks the Dhamma. So translation becomes much easier when you start to understand these things, start to recognize the roots in words that allow you to get a sense of what it is. There's so many words. Just to switch quickly over to Chakopala, because of the forms of things, there ends up being much more words than you could ever look up in a dictionary. But instead, you find, like here, a sankayani. This is a noun, and this is an example of a Kitaka. Actually, this is an example of what we're talking about today. It's a noun that comes from the root sunk. Sunk in regards to counting. So we already have our root. We look at this, we say, hey, I found the root in regards to counting. So not, but we'll take that out. That's for the end. Sankyeya. I don't know if this ya has to be there. It depends. It's probably a different spelling. I think there's two different spellings. But this is a neuter. This is neuter plural. We can see because of ani. But that doesn't matter. We've added on a suffix eya. Actually, probably neya. Let's see where we can find that. That's in Kirya Kitaka down. No, it's not. Sorry, it's up here. Where is it? Wait a second. Yeah. I'm not going to find it. I think it might be this one. No. Yeah. Oh, well, there's probably a rule here. I don't know. Anyway, it's one of these somewhere. That turns it, because this is something that should be counting or could be counted. Sorry, it should be counted or could be counted. So something that is sankheya is something that could be counted. Something that is asankheya is something that cannot be counted. So that's what this word means, something that cannot be counted. And you can work that out by starting with the root. And like this one as well. This is different actually, but we'll skip it for now. Like this one, arakitaba. Forget about the ending part for now, but just take arakitaba is an adjective. And what you've done is you've taken the root rak in regards to protecting, and itaba or taba actually. And let's look up taba. Here we are. And you have kataba here. So if you add taba at the end, something that should be, just one of the many endings. And so you've added that onto the root. And this means something that should be protected. So rakitaba is something that should be protected. Arakitaba is something that should not be protected. That's what this word means. You have already the definition. So instead of knowing what this word means and looking it up in a dictionary, you know what the root means. I don't ever have to look this kind of word up in a dictionary, no matter what kind of word I see, because I look at this and I see the parts of it. I know that at the beginning probably is a negative, right? It's just negating everything, so you cut that off. Find the root. I already see the root because I'm familiar with roots. So, okay, I know that this is the root. And I know what this ending means. This ending means something that should be. Let me see, should be protected. Because it's passive. Passive it, the e here, well, anyway, that's getting too complicated. Let's not go into that yet. This is because, yeah, we'll get into that later, hopefully. We won't complicate it like that. But the point being, this is a very powerful thing. Rather than having to look up every single word, you find you know what the roots are, and you derive the meaning. You figure out figure out what root the word is derived from, what root and what suffix. So two parts to a Kitaka. There's the root and there's the suffix. Okay, yeah, so this is what, some of them are going to be active and some of them are going to be passive and some of them are going to be both. But really the most important thing to know is that some words are going to be using the root in an active sense, and some are going to be using the root in a passive sense. So what does that mean? Like Dhammavadi, here it's being used in an active sense, because the thing you're talking about, the Dhammavadi, is someone who speaks. It's not someone that is spoken. If you were to talk about something that is spoken, it would be like a word like vadita. And I hope there's somewhere. If there's not, I'll go over this again. But the e here implies the passive, but it's another ending that I'll go over in a bit. My only point being is that there are other forms where you use the root wad, but you use it in a passive sense. So the root wadita is something that was, the thing that you're referring to was spoken. Here, the thing that you're referring to is doing the speaking. So that's what this means. We've got kita and kitcha. If you use this kind of suffix, or let's just say some kitaka are going to be active, so the thing is doing the verb. Some are going to be passive, so they're going to be the thing that is being done, like as I showed you, wadita. And then some can be used, some suffixes can be used for both, but all that means is that I don't really think you have to remember which are which. You just have to have a sense that there's both passive and active. And that little e there often shows you. Because if you wanted to say one who spoke, it would be wad plus ta. And I'm getting ahead of myself because I'll show you about ta in ta later. But I've talked about ta before because it's just so common. And wad plus ta, I think it's wata. But I'm not sure. No, it might just be wata or something. I'm actually not sure. This means someone who spoke, but it's not wata. I'm not sure what happens when you put da and ta together. Maybe this? This is referring to a person who did the speaking. But if it's something that was spoken, you add an e in there to make it passive. So I'm telling you now because I'm not sure if this textbook shows that. It's deficient in many ways, as am I, as are we all. But write that down somewhere because it might be useful. Anyway, before we get to that, we go through these. So with Kitaka, there are two kinds based on how they're used. Nama Kitaka are what I've been sort of talking about, a thing. Nama Kitaka are referring to Nama, right? The thing that you end up with is a Nama. Kiriya Kitaka ends up, the thing that you create is not exactly a verb, it's a participle in English. So you end up with these that we've already seen, right? Gachanta, Garonta, Garyamana. So Kiriya Kitaka are really what we would say in English participles. These are the two present participles. And then these other ones I've showed you. And this one, which we've seen already so many times. Dwa is a past participle or gerund or whatever. It's called a gerund. And then this one, this is the past participle, which is so common. Anyway, we'll get back to these in a second. We're not at Kiriya Kita yet, just to point out that there are two kinds. So, meaning what you end up with is all nama. But is it a nama or is it a guna nama in the sense of being a participle? That's not even clear. That's not even true. It's related to the function. So nama refer to things, because they're also guna nama. Sorry, these ones are not nama, are they? Well, yeah, they could be nama. That's not the point. The point is not whether they are nama. The point is that they end up using the function of a participle, having the function of a participle. These ones take on the function of a thing, right? So a sayambu, this word refers to a person, and so on. Okay. All right. Anyway, let's go over them first. Nama Kitaka. Nama Kitaka are these ones that refer to a person. They're a descriptor of an individual. They don't refer to an action. That's what these ones do. And we have the following suffixes. Gui, ni, nu, tu, ru. And these are not, okay, they are. So these ones here are called kita pachaya. Normally these are actually separated, but that's fine. So this first group is the kita pachaya. These are the ones that are going to be active. And as you can see, they don't actually end up all looking like this. Gui is the name for a suffix that does nothing. So with using this chart, look at this column to really find out what sort of thing you're doing to the root. With this one, you don't do anything. You take the root and you stick it on the end and you make a noun. Meaning gui is just the name of this first suffix. You don't ever actually see gui. You see nothing like gui. For some reason, it's just the name of this suffix that does nothing. Take the root, turn it into a noun. So basically what you've done here is you've taken bu and you've added a nothing suffix, an empty suffix. But you have to remember that because this is not the root bu. This is a word that was formed out of the root bu. You have to think of it like that so that you don't start to wonder what the heck is that root doing there. You remember that you've added bu You've added a suffix to bu, or you've converted bu into a noun. Bu is in regards to being. So, and sayam means self, or in this case, by oneself. So sayambhu, not creator of self, it means self-created. Sayambhu is an epithet for Brahma, because Brahma, God is said to be Sayambhu, self-created. Nobody created God, God created himself. But the Buddha actually co-opted this and called himself Sayambhu because he made himself a Buddha. Nobody else taught him how to be a Buddha, which is quite clever. Uraga, here the root is actually ga, which you may not have noticed, but well, the root is actually gum. But gum is so irregular that it does these kinds of things, and you end up with uraga. Ura means chest. In this case, on one's chest, one's stomach, kind of. And ga in regards to going, so when you turn ga into a noun, you get one who goes, right? Here you get one who exists. Here you get one who goes. One who goes how? On one's chest. A snake is a being that travels on its chest. Dhammavadi, we've already been over. This is the ipachaya. So again, na is not something you ever see. It's just a reminder that unless this vowel here is followed by a conjunct consonant, you're going to make it strong. So you end up with wadi. And yes, if you didn't have Dhamma, you could just have wadi. Wadi, it's not used very often because it doesn't mean much, but it means one who speaks. Right? These are all Kitapachaya, means they're all active. Nuwu, another weird one. Remember, this is still only, in this case as well, it's only here to strengthen the root vowel. But wu is not actually wu, it's ga. See, when I learned these, I had to memorize these names. That's what these names here are for, actually. Gui, ni, nu, tu, ru. And that can be useful so that you have a list of them in your mind. But it can be a little bit confusing when we're doing it like this without having memorized them. All you need to really know is that you have a suffix ga. Well, with the na there. So when you take a root nai, you strengthen the root vowel. You also add an a for some reason. Maybe I'm not sure what you're doing there. Anyway, don't question it. You add an a there because you really have to. You can't put nai plus ka. It has to be nayaka. But this is how you'll see it. You'll see it with an aka on the end. I'm not sure if there are any other vowels. There's ika, but ika is a different suffix that we'll see later on. I think. Yeah, we'll see that later on. Anyway, one who does what? Who leads. Nayaka, one who leads. Tu we've seen already in katu, like katu vachaka. Katu comes from the root kar. And kar plus tu becomes katu. This is just sandhi because you can't have kartu. In Sanskrit, you'd have something like this, kurtu. I think. In Pali, you can't do that. So you have katu. And this is not right. Nyatu. No, you can't. I don't know. Doesn't look right. I'm not sure about that one. It's not so common. Tu is not a very common suffix. Ka is very common. E is pretty common. And this one is somewhat common. Ru, not very common at all. But the R is not the R is not actually there. It's just U. Paragu. Gum goes to gu. Paragu. Should be like that, I think. Winyu we've already seen. So you take the root nya, you add a prefix vi, you get winya. And when you want to make a person who is winya, you say winyu. Nya in regards to knowing, we special, so winya is knowing in regards to knowing in a special way. So when you take winya plus ru, you get winyu. And again, what you have to know here is that you're going to come across words that end in u, and you have to remember that you have this suffix. Suffixes that mean one who does that thing, right? And so you don't have to actually look this up in the dictionary. And the easier thing to do that most people would do is look it up in a dictionary and find that word. But it's of course much quicker to actually be able to pick apart this word and say, okay, this is nya with this prefix vi. This is a doubled nya here, but the root is nya. I mean, if you can actually figure that out, nya plus vi, one who knows the knowing specially, and you remember u is a kitapachaya, so you end up with winyu. It's maybe harder than it's worth. This is worth knowing. Maybe I would say don't stress about this, but you'll see as we go through the text, as I've already shown you, I was able to point out places. It's incredibly useful later on when you start to try and figure out what's exactly being said here and how would you translate it into English. Because translations are often not literal and can actually, if the translator is going quickly or makes a mistake, they might mistranslate something because they didn't get the correct meaning of the word that was being used. So when you look at the Pali, you can have a sense of, wow, what actually does this word mean? There are many sort of esoteric sort of words that it's hard to find the actual meaning, and you might not even find them in the dictionary, but if you start to pick them apart, you can get a sense of what's being said based on the root, based on the prefix, based on the derivation of the word.
Can I ask?
Mm-hmm.
When we apply the same rule for gum, it became gu with short u.
I don't know about that one. I don't know where that's coming from. Let's just put a long root. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure why that mistake. If it was a mistake, I'll have to look up why we included gum. I don't have my textbooks here with me. Honestly, this is the only one you're really going to see. This is some places like in poetry, but Winyu is just so much. It's the biggest one, and we've seen this right in our. It's one of them you had to memorize.
Yes.
So let's look at the ones that follow it because that'll give us some examples. And you'll see these here. So here we have it. It is a long. And these are all Kitaka. You've taken the root bu, and these ones are different because you didn't actually add u, but this one you did. This is a different. See, this is a different form. This is the root is actually bu, and you just add nothing to the end, which we saw. Sayambu, abibu is the same. Katanyu. So katanyu is gratitude. Well, katanyu is one who is great. No, katanyu is one who is grateful, but literally, it means one who knows nya kata, what has been done. So when someone does something for you, some people don't even think of what other people have done and are not grateful. So katanyu literally means one who keeps the knowledge in their mind of what others have done for them. Whereas some people don't even think about it. They don't even realize that so they're not grateful.
And kata there is kar plus ta from
That's right.
participle.
That's right. So this is multiple derivations. But what's happening here is this is actually a compound. Kata is a different word. So our word is actually just new, just like this. This is our Kitaka, where you take the root nya and you add the ending ru. Same with these ones. Para is a different word. It's not important for this lesson. Here's our lesson. Gu, ga plus u. Ga plus ru is gu. Again, the ra is, there's no meaning behind it. You'll never see ru, you just see u. Vedagu, one who has gone to the Vedas. Vedagu. It's more like one who has gone to knowledge. I'm not quite sure about what that one exactly means, but the Vedas were like knowledge. Veda is another word, comes from the root vid, or wij, comes from the root wij. Wij is in regards to knowing. Wij plus ta, I think. I'm not sure how you get Veda. Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's another Kitaka, I think. I mean, it's derived somehow. Veda is derived from wij, the root wij. Anyway, for our exercise, this is easier and more important. And here's Sayambu again. Again, this is the one you have not added ru. You've just taken the root bu and added an empty suffix on the end. Basically, you've just turned it into a noun. Okay. So those are the Kitta Pachaya. Then you have Kitcha Pachaya. So again, here's one that is the same as the one, does nothing, right? It's the same as Kvi. Kvi doesn't change the word. Ka also doesn't, but it's Kitcha Pachaya. So it's not someone doing the thing. It's something that is having something done to it. So Subara, the root is bar, I think. Bar in regards to burdening. So this is... I'm actually not sure. Bar means in regards to carrying a burden, I think. Anyway, something that is being a burden to someone else is a bara. Subara, someone who is being a light burden. So if someone is subara, that means they are not a burden on anyone. Nobody is having to take a heavy burden because of them. Duraka, easier to understand here, because rak, in regards to protecting, hard to protect. Raka, this thing that you're calling duraka, you're not saying this thing is protecting hard. You're saying it's hard to protect, right? So it's pretty simple, and you really, like, I don't even realize I'm doing it. I know that duraka doesn't mean, I just know that it doesn't mean someone who is protecting. Doesn't mean protecting hard, it means hard to protect. And you see the difference? It's passive instead of active. It's because, so it's more like you look at this word and you know that it's using this suffix and not this suffix because you know that this is passive. It's a thing being protected, a thing that is hard to protect.
But do isn't the opposite of su, meaning bad?
It is, yeah. Well, do can mean bad, it can mean hard, difficult.
Okay.
It can mean hard, difficult, unpleasant, evil. And yeah, various meanings. Nya becomes iya. I think this one might also become aya. I'm not sure though. Anya and also I don't know how to explain why it does what it does. Really, just tell you again. This is how it ends up. Karya. But it is something to recognize, really a niya. Like if you thought of it as this this is something you'll see a lot. Anything that ends with iya. Karya, something that should be done. You also get karaniya. Look at this. And this is a dot under it. Just a short A. Karaniya. Niya. Do we have that somewhere else? That is somewhere else, isn't it? It isn't. Ah, here we are. Right. Okay, so sorry. We have karaniya. And then I'm probably wrong that it's a short. Anyway, don't mess this up. This isn't actually that common. Karyang. I don't think you see this as much as the other one. Kitcha, pachaya, should do. So anyway, karya is something that someone should do. No,
It
something you
shouldn't be a noun.
It's an adjective.
Gunanama.
Gunanama, yeah. It's talking about something that someone should do. If this is karya, this you should do it. Hey, this thing is karya. That means, hey, this thing is something you should do. Like you should keep sila or practice meditation. But that form, I can't think of. Yeah, you must see it. I just don't realize it. Anyway, Kaniya. Huh. Yeah, we don't have. Yeah, I may have taken some out here. Oh, well. This might also be because this is Kitaka already. Shoot, I should have a list of these somewhere. The list wasn't added, but the list of the suffixes would have been useful to know which are kita pachaya, which are kitcha, and which are kita kitcha. Anyway. So you don't add anything. So here we have vinaya. And the root here is naya again. And you just haven't added anything on the end. The root is nai, I think. And you might add an I'm not sure. I think it's not an exact science what you're adding to the end with some of these. Like, where does this come from? I don't know that it's actually thought to be this. Anyway, we can maybe pretend that it is. And we have naya. Take the root nai and you get naya. The point is that lots of words like this, where you have a thing that does this thing. So you have this root, and then you have a thing that does it, that leads. Nai in regards to leading, naya is a thing that leads. And we out, a thing that leads out. So Vinaya is the Buddhist monastic discipline. And it was called that, I guess, for the purpose of reminding that these rules aren't something to cling to. They're something that you're supposed to use in order to practice as a basis for your practice. Don't cling to the rules, but use them as a basis of practice. Sai is in regards to lying down, actually. We've seen this root before. Sai in regards to lying down. Ni. Nis, with the root, with the prefix ni, it means something a little bit different. It's like being able to rest upon. Nisaya means resting upon or being supported by. Right? So you can understand how it comes from the root to lie down. When you depend on someone, you're kind of able to use them to prop yourself up. But nisaya is something that you depend upon, someone or something. A nisaya is a thing that is depended upon, but it can be in regards to, like, with contact is the nisaya, because of contact, then there is Vedana, Nisaya, Paccayas. It's the same word as Paccaya, same meaning as Paccaya. Anyway, this is how you get the word Nisaya. You have, and that's not that important because you're going to find Nisaya in a dictionary and it has a very specific meaning. But useful to know where it comes from. Not very common, but it's how you get sandhi. This, I think, is this, actually. Seems like there's a bunch of mistakes here. Plus that. What does this mean? Sand. I don't know what's going on here, because that doesn't mean that. I don't know what's going on here. Remember, I didn't write this. Someone listened to me, and this is how they understood it. So we did the best we could. I'm grateful that they put this down. But I think this is sand, actually. I'm not sure what the root is. You can look it up. Anyway, the outcome is that this is how you get sandhi. Not an important thing to learn, really. This one only strengthens, so sometimes, really the best way to look at all of these is you'll come up with a word and you have a sense that sometimes what's happened is the root has been strengthened. Sometimes you'll come up with a long I and you'll have a sense that the root has been strengthened and you've added a long I, that kind of thing, right? Honestly, I think learning all these suffixes is overrated because that's not how you're going to approach the text. You're going to use these suffixes, learning these suffixes, to have a sense that these are the sorts of things that can happen. So don't worry about having to memorize all of these. Going through them like we are and going through them again on your own gives you a sense of what sort of words you might come up with. You might come up against. This is very common, this sort of thing, to just strengthen the root. And remember, this is a dictionary word, so you won't see it like this. You'll see it like this, right? It just follows purisa, and you'll see kamakaro, that sort of thing. You'll see quite often.
But it's kama plus car?
Yeah, we haven't done compounds. Compounds is our next lesson, but everything you're seeing here is all compounds.
And how can be translated?
One who does kamma.
Oh, okay.
So this is from the root kar, and all you've done is strengthen the root.
Yeah.
Kar in regards to doing, and this is one who does. This has got to be a Kitaka paccaya, which means the suffix can be used either passive or active, as the doer or the thing being done.
And the previous as well?
I think all of these. Again, they haven't added it, but I think all three of these. That's why I said I'm not actually sure. It looks like these are the only two Kitcha paccaya we have. And it looks like these three are both Kitta and Kitcha.
Okay, thank you.
These ones are... It's so funny to see this because this is the actual name of this suffix, but you don't add ya, you add na instead. Don't ask me why the grammarians had it this way. Tueditum, and I don't think this is even ya. Tueditum. I think this is actually you. Tueditum. Let me see. Na tawe. Not tueditum you. I think this is you. Doesn't really matter because you don't use it. You add na instead. Okay. We'll go through them. Na strengthens tawe. Tawe has a specific meaning. Like tung. Tawe is Not that common. Maybe poetry more. I'm not sure. You don't see it that often. Anyway, it has a special meaning of in order to do. So in order to do something, something else is to be done. You can look it up, see if you can find a sentence with it in it. It's fairly uncommon. This one is more common, and we've seen this, karitung, to do. So these two actually have a different sort of purpose. They have a very specific, this one especially has a very specific purpose in a sentence that makes it not like the others. It's like, so if you said like kammang karitung, it means to do kamma, but you would say sakoti, like this. This would be a sentence. This means he or she is able, that's what this word means, to do kamma. So this, it's the infinitive form of a verb. It's not actually like the ones that we've been studying. It's a whole different sort of word, used in a whole different sort of way. And it's used only in very few sentences. It has to be able to do, or if someone wants to do, you can say ichati. Someone wants to do something. This means he or she or it wants to do kamma. Wants to do kamma. And so you'll only see it in those very specific forms. And the way, again, I don't see it very much, but I think I have seen it before. In order to do. Like, in order to do X, you must do Y, kind of thing. So there would be maybe or you should do. So it would be something like an optative form with another verb. Yeah, and this is you, I'm quite sure. You adds the suffix na, so the suffix is actually na. Oh, sorry, I missed ti. Ti, there's not many of them, but one notable is sati. So the root is sar. Sati comes from sar plus ti. Sar in regards to remembering. Sorry, why does it? Yeah, sar plus ti becomes sati. Sati means, sati actually means, it's actually a noun. So this is a nama. It's not an adjective. You're not talking about a thing that is sati. You're talking about sati itself. Sati is a thing itself. It's the ability to remember, or the capacity to remember. The faculty of being able to remember. So yeah, you is actually quite common though. This one is quite common. So what this one does is it very directly turns a root into a noun. So gamana equals going, the going. Karana equals the doing. Jetana means the, we could say thinking, but it's not quite that. Jade actually comes, I think, just from jint, and it's irregular. But anyway, these two are much more regular and easy to straightforward. Gum, the root gum, add na with the a. Don't ask me why, but you have to add it. You get gamana. So you're not just adding na, you're basically adding ana most of the time. Karana. Now, why there's a dot under here, just as a side note, is because of this ra. Why you see these dots just irregularly? Because you're adding na, but when you add na and you have a ra, it's just a quirk of the language that you're going to add a dot. You convert this one. This is a very side note, but something that probably should have been. It's probably a footnote to one of the very first chapters about how the alphabet works. Or sandhi, maybe. I don't know if it's even considered sandhi. It's not really. But yes, when there's an R, a ra, this is why we get sarana. So there's another one. Equals the... sarana is a bit different. Sarana. Sar. Well, sarana can mean a refuge, or it can mean a reflection. Right, it's used a little bit differently than these two. But quite often, na is just used to turn a root into a noun. That gives you something like this, the going. So when you talk about the going, this is a way of speaking in Pali. Like if you say, her going will make everyone unhappy. That's how you'd say this. The going of her, it would be sasagamana. Sasagamana, because it's probably neuter. Yeah, it's going to be neuter. This is her going, tasagamanang. Makes everyone happy or unhappy or whatever. And you'll see this sort of thing quite common. Try and remember the na endings as being a noun from the root. Okay, and a little more quickly, Kirya Kitaka, because we don't have much time, and we've been over these before. Anta and mana, I've talked about these before as being present participles. Take a root, but because these are present participles, again, you're using the present stem. So what we talked about for verbs, remember I said the present system, well, that includes these two. So you're going to end up with things like gotcha. Whereas up here you got gum plus na, is gamana. You don't get gum plus anta. Anta and mana can be considered special in that way, in that these two are going to start with the present stem. And these are Kirya Kitaka, so the outcome is not going to be a thing or a person or something. It's going to be relating to someone who does something, right? So here it's going. So we've seen this before. A person while going. So grammatically, it's an adjective, but it's called Kirya Kitaka because it's still expressing an action, literally. It's a nama because Kitaka are nama, but it's expressing action. And this is the meaning of these two is the same. Anta and mana are used interchangeably. This one here in this instance is passive. That's why you have this iya. Karyamana. While something is being done. Right, and again, remember you only use the present stem for katuwachika, for active. This is very confusing, I'm sorry. But okay, remember that we're using, for passive, you use a different pachaya, you don't use the present stem, and you end up with karyamana. I'm sorry, this has got to be too confusing. It makes a bit of sense to me. I don't have that big of a problem, but I've been doing this for quite a while.
And for instance, we can have the declensions, like for instance, karya mano.
Yeah, remember all of these are going to be that way, except for the special instances. These two I would actually personally take them out because there's something very different. But everything else is just going to be a noun. You're just ending up with a nama. This one would be vinaya, so you get vinayo, right? These are mostly by purisa. This one will be sati is masculine, I think. Sati, so you just translate it as muni, I think.
How would you know if it's masculine, feminine, or neutral?
Look it up in a dictionary.
Well,
I mean, the best answer is look it up how it's used, but The easiest answer is look it up in a dictionary, because a good dictionary will tell you. The digital Pali reader is pretty good about telling you gender. I mean, the dictionaries that it uses.
When the DPR says feminine noun.
Sati is feminine? Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Sati, yeah, of course. It's sati, satio, sati, sating, satio, sati. Satya is what you get. So for like a lot of them, it's just going to be satya. So it follows rati. Rati is an odd choice to use for the paradigm, as you'll see, because rati is actually irregular. So better they'd use something like sati, but anyway, keep that in mind when you do this week's homework. It's going to be irregular. It's an odd choice for the example. Tawi is, and these ones, Tawi. What is this here? I don't know why they're in this order. But okay, so Tawi, let's save it because Tawi and these ones, Tawi, and we've actually seen these before in the suffixes, so let's just ignore them for now. Antamano we got. Aniya and Taba are another pair that are used interchangeably. I showed you them already. These are something that should be. So as I said, Karaniya, something that should be done. Kataba, something that should be done. They mean the same thing. And these are extremely common. Anytime you want to talk about a thing that should be done, you use one or another of these. And they're all over the place. And sometimes you're going to end up, as I showed you, with itaba. That's probably the only thing I have to say about this. Like you can also say karitaba. And it actually, I think, means, if I'm thinking correctly, it means the same thing as kataba. So there really isn't a difference. You'll sometimes have itaba, you'll sometimes have taba. So you'd end up with karitaba or something. But you just have kataba. So there you wouldn't have to worry about a difference in meaning because you got karitaba. I don't think, as far as I can think, it's because it's always going to be something that should be done. It's not someone who should do something. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, these are passive in the sense of it's the thing that should be done. Anyway, they're used interchangeably. Good things to know. Good things to remember because you're going to see these all over the place. Roots with aniya, roots with taba stuck on the end of the root means that thing should be whatever the verb is. Should be given, should be done, should be said. Wattaba is a quite common one. Wattaba. It's only one T. Wattaba, something that should be said. All right, and ta. So this, yeah, ta is. I've talked about it so much already because it is the most common thing you're ever going to see. It's used everywhere. Everything has ta. And this textbook doesn't do it justice. In the Thai textbook, it goes through a whole list of examples because it's highly irregular. As you can see, take the root dis and add ta. Well, you can't have dista. In Sanskrit, that would work, but not in Pali, so you end up with dita. It just turns into everything. It becomes so many different things. And we've seen that already. You can't go anywhere without seeing ta. Here's one, isn't it? Yeah. This is ta, but it's got e on the end. I'm going to have to talk about that, I guess. But I just want to give you an example. Well, let's give the example of Buddha. Bud. Bud plus ta equals Buddha. And there are all sorts of rules that the Thai textbook tells you that are useful, but they're not here, and I don't have my Thai textbooks. But there are rules like this, like if this one is aspirated, the aspiration goes after, and it assimilates. So the ta became a da, and you moved the h from here, so you end up with this basically, and then you move the h over. That simple. Actually, it's not bud. Sorry, what am I doing? Oh no. This is the root, I think, right? Buj. I'm going to mess up this very important word. What's the root? Buj, awakening.
It is on the previous pages.
Is it?
BHUJ. I think.
H goes here?
No. That's that.
No, it's a different one. Bud, buj. I think this is the root. It may be two J's. Buj. It might just be bud. I might be getting it wrong. Anyway, we'll leave it at, well, we'll take it off for now because I don't, but you can look it up. You'll find it if you look it up. The only important point is to know that ta is everywhere. And what it does is it makes it a past participle. So dis plus ta is not, it's something that has been seen. Not someone who has seen. Has been seen. And it can be active or passive. So it could be, dita could be someone who saw something, but it usually means something that was seen. Buddha means someone who has known, has come to know. You usually say someone who knows, but so past participles isn't always literally translated as something in the past, but it's someone who has acquired that. Like if someone is sitting down, no, someone is, sorry, what's a good one? Standing. Standing is tito. Ta plus ta becomes tita because it's kind of irregular, I think. Tita means someone who is standing, but it's literally someone who stood, who is stood maybe. But tita is how you say you describe a person who is standing. Someone who knows, ñata. Someone who gives is a datta. No, not really. Something that is given is datta. Sorry, mostly passive. So something that is given is something that's datta. Da plus ta. Data. I think it's just, I'm not sure. Something that is done is katta. This is very common. You're going to see this all over the place. Kat plus ta is something that has been done. Trying to think of some irregular, weird looking ones. Well, I mean, simple ones like Buddha. Buddha is something that has existed. Something that has come into existence. So common, all over the place. It's often used instead of a verb. So you'll say kamang katang. And that's enough to make a sentence because the way they'll say is you imply this, hoti. And what this means is the kamma is done. But all you see is kamang katang, which means the kamma is done. If it was something that is seen, you'd say ditang. You don't see a kamma, but you see something watung. You see a thing. Well, it would be rupang, that's what you see, rupang ditang. The rupa is seen or was seen. So you imply, the verb is implied, and it could be past or present. It could be ahosi, was seen.
And we had in the text agachanto. That goes here as well.
No, that goes here.
Oh.
Present. That's a present participle. Anta. We know that if you have
okay.
ga here, this is ga. Gata. Gata means gone. But there he wasn't gone, he was going. That's the present participle. So sorry, I didn't
Okay.
say explicitly what these. The present participle is ing, ing. This is how you get the English form doing, coming, going, eating. And the Satipatthana Sutta Gachanto, or when going. Ta is the root plus ta. Tuna, twa, twana. So tuna and twana are not very common at all. Very rare. This one a little bit. This one I don't think I've ever seen it. But twa we've already seen many times. And these are the gerunds. They're in regards to having done something. And we already know how they're used. And that's Kitaka. It's a lot. It's advanced grammar. At this point, this is extra stuff, although compounds are going to be quite useful to learn. But even still, you don't really have to study all this. This is extra, and it's very useful. But it's not something you should have a headache over or feel like, oh, I don't understand this, or I don't get it completely. I'm never going to be able to understand Pali. Because you don't need this. It's just extra, really helpful stuff. So there's no question that it's useful to learn. But think of this as something you can slowly digest and slowly pick up as we go along. Most important is that you know nama and you know nouns and verbs, right? This is going to be extra stuff that makes it easier for you to translate. Okay, I'm in a bit of a time limit here because I'm using someone else's space, but let's go through this last paragraph together in Chakupala. Yeah, can I have another 15 minutes? 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Okay. Panna here usually means but here I would say not so much but. It's more, oh wait, this is part 2. This is not the one, sorry. This is the one. Tasming samaye. This is our time, we just take it out. Again, with things about place and time, we're just going to take them out. We can translate them first. Tasming is 7-1 of ta. And here it's not used on its own, it's put together with samaye, samaya. This is also 7-1. So these actually agree with each other. They're both 7-1, and this one is just using a different ending because with da you don't have the a, you don't use the a ending. But tasming samaye is one thing. It's at that time. Locative. Or samaya, however you want to translate samaya. At that time is easy. Satta here is an irregular noun. This is a 1-1 form. It's masculine, but it's an irregular word. Satta meaning the teacher. Usually only used in Pali to refer to the Buddha. So here it's referring to the Buddha. It's saying at that time the teacher, meaning the Buddha. And then we have a real problem because this is our verb. This is another quite complicated sentence. This word we can translate first because it goes with satta. So we can say the satta, the teacher, and this is a type of compound which we'll learn next week. This is one who has a chakka. Chakka means a wheel. So this is also 1-1. We know that because of the O, it's easy to recognize. 1-1, 1-1, they go together. So we're saying the satta, one who has a wheel of Dhamma that is very special. Vara meaning exalted, I think in this case. one who has a Vara Dhammacakka. Maybe not has. One by whom the Vara Dhammacakka, the exalted wheel of Dhamma, was turned, because it's by him. One by whom, and I'm not exactly sure how the grammar would work this out in Pali, or in Thai, how they'd say it. But that's what it means. One by whom. So the teacher...
Isn't one who turns the Dhamma wheel?
You can't say it like that, because that's not literally what it means.
Okay.
One who turns. This is a past participle. So the wheel was turned. I think in Thai the way they say it is, again, one for whom. It's not like that. One who has a Vara Dhammacakka turned already, because this is a past participle. So what it's trying to say, and that's useful because what it's trying to say is he'd already done that. It's saying the satta, after turning the Dhammacakka, after setting in motion the wheel of Dhamma, that's what it's trying to say. I'm just trying to give you the grammar. Sorry, it's not actually Viharati because we got this one first, right? We got a gerund that's going to get in our way. And this is Sandhi. This is actually two words. It's Anupubena.
It's a name, Anupuba.
No. Anupuba here is talking about the way. It's auxiliary. It's a 3-1.
Gradually?
Yeah.
Yes, if you look it up, you can see gradually. So this is a gerund having come, or maybe having gone, we're not sure because this is coalesced. Having come... Yeah, I think having come makes more sense. Having come by stages or gradually, yeah. Anu and Puba. Anu means following the previous. So Anupuba means stage by stage, in stages, or gradually. Having come gradually, was dwelling in Jetavana Mahavihara. This is a name. It actually literally means the forest of Jeta. Jeta was a prince. It was his name. There's a story about him and how it came to be that it was called Jetavana. And Jetavana was a Mahavihara. Mahavihara, Vihara is a dwelling, and Maha, a great dwelling. Viharati is a third person singular, 1-1. He was dwelling. It's present. He is dwelling. Right? This is Vattamana, but it means he was dwelling. In Jetavana Mahavihara, and this is an adjective of Jetavana Mahavihara. And then the rest of this is very hard. Just a second. Yeah. Okay, because you'd think, well, this is a gerund, why can't we do this? But no, because this does not relate to the Buddha. This is saying Jetavana Mahavihara was karita. Again, we have a ta. Actually, do we have ta? I think we have ta. Anyway, this is a Kitaka of some sort. See what I mean? I don't even know how to derive these literally, but I know it's a Kitaka. I know this means something that was made. So Jetavana Mahavihara was made. Because this is also 7-1, right? He was dwelling in, the locative, 7-1. Jetavana Mahavihara, that was made by Anathapindika the Mahaseti. So this is his name. This is what he was. The great rich guy. Was made by him having sacrifice. You see? It's a weird formation, but all of this goes together. You have to translate it together. And how do you know that? You really don't. This is a hard thing to translate. You look at the translation and you say, okay, and you figure out until you get it, how they did that. Don't expect to be able to see this on your own. But I've told you now, you know. It was made by Anathapindika Mahasethi, having sacrificed or given up this much for Chatupanasa 54 koti of wealth. Koti is what? 10,000?
And 10 million.
10 million? Yeah, okay. Well, a lot. 54 kotis of wealth. Dana means wealth. Wealth to the amount of 54 kotis. Okay?
Question.
So this is that. Yeah, go ahead.
So is this a rare case where a gerund did not end that clause?
That's right.
Oh,
The gerund is stuck in the description of how it was made.
okay.
It's a description of this is one big adjective. You have to think of this as one big adjective describing Jetavana Mahavihara that the Buddha was dwelling in. And we're going to see an even harder one in the next. This is the first verse of the Dhammapada. This wasn't chosen because it's the easiest, and it's certainly not the easiest. So starting here is just throwing you in the deep end, really. It was chosen because it's the first verse. This is where you start to study the Dhammapada. So don't be discouraged that you've got these hard things. Let's just worry about the easy stuff for now, and the hard stuff will come by itself eventually. Let's just get our heads around the basics. This is just one big adjective. Understand that. I mean, you understand more than that already, but don't worry about the details. Okay, he was dwelling there, and then we can go on and find another verb. And we don't see when we instead see a participle, which we can use as a verb.
Isn't the verb in that last? Yeah.
It's not a
Paya?
verb. It's mana. Wait, tapya mana. Yeah, it's mana because mana, we just learned, is a present participle. It's this. Same as anta.
Mm.
So in fact, all of this is just another adjective for the Buddha. Having done this already, he's already turned the Dhammacakka, he is now causing people, this is napaya, which is a causative suffix, causing people to be stood. Remember I showed you tita. Well, there's 2 T's, so I guess it is 2 T's. I don't think it has to be. To be stood firmly, which means to be established. So he was causing, you see? So here we might put a real verb like ahosi. He was. What was he? He was causing, that's this part, apia, napia, cause, and this is the ing, this makes it a present participle, mana, causing people to become established, causing to be established causing these people, the Mahajana, which is a great number of people, the general populace basically, to be established, and these are 7-1, in the path to Sagga. Magga means path, so in the path to Sagga and in the path to Moksha. Sagga means heaven, Moksha means liberation. So some people were not ready to become free from suffering, but he was still helping them, and because of their listening and their paying attention and practicing his teaching, they could at least go to Sagga, which is heaven. And that's the ending of that. I have to go because I'm taking up space, but thank you for bearing with me, 3 of you. I hope it's been useful.
Very much, Bhante.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
good.
you.
Well, I'm glad it's useful. Have a good week.
You too, Bhante. Bye.
Same. All the best.